The problems with the president's tax reduction and spending proposal were made worse today. The Congressional Budget Office reports the current budget package would add more than $2 trillion to the national debt over 10 years. For tonight's interview, we turn to Marc Goldwein, Senior Policy Director for the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. Marc, give me your assessment of the CBO score today.
Well, look, the bill is not pretty. We are already deep in debt as a country. And based on CBO, this bill is going to add $3 trillion more to the debt as written. But by the way, it includes a number of temporary provisions. If those are made permanent, it's actually going to add $5 trillion to the debt.
Right. So the score that it got is even worse, really, than the score they got. Now, I want to take us and viewers stand by here. We're going to talk about budget scoring. So essentially, there are a bunch of different organizations, the CBO being the nonpartisan one, that guess about how these budgets will play out in the future. The Speaker of the House says essentially, well, the CBO doesn't count economic activity as a result of the tax cuts and so forth. Give me yours. Help us understand where his critique has merit and where it's incomplete.
Sure. So the Congressional Budget Office and the Joint Committee of Taxation, which does the tax part, they do account for behavioral effects, right? So if some tax goes up, I might do something different. What they haven't yet incorporated is how might that affect the economy. CBO is working on that. But we do have enough data out there to suggest the answer is not very much. For example, the Joint Committee on Taxation thinks the economy in 10 years from now will be 0.2% larger as a result of this tax bill. The Tax Foundation thinks it will be 0.8% larger. So yes, the numbers might differ a little bit with the economy, but we're talking about maybe 100, 200 billion more. In fact, it could actually cost more because the negative debt effects could boost interest rates. We are not talking about a major difference. Whatever this bill is going to be, it's still going to round to 3 trillion, still going to round to 5 trillion on a permanent basis.
Help me understand, the CBO report also talked about millions of people losing health coverage. Where does that come from?
Yeah, so there's actually $1 trillion worth of healthcare savings in this bill. A lot of it's pretty smart stuff, like stopping states from doing some of these scams that basically take money from the federal government by inflating their match. But there are also things like work requirements, changes to immigration eligibility, changes to redeterminations to see who's eligible. And all of those have effects of reducing the number of people with healthcare coverage. People can argue, of course, how much of those are sort of deserving people losing their coverage versus undeserving. I'll let other folks focus on that. I'm going to focus on the fiscal effects of this bill.
Speaking of the fiscal effects, Marc, what roads are they not taking in this debate that they could have taken that would have solved some of these problems?
Well, I think the big issue here is there's actually $3 trillion worth of offsets. The big issue is there's $6 trillion worth of costs. So we should do more on the offset side, especially looking where can we lower Medicare costs, because there's so many options that have bipartisan support to lower those. But we also got to not have the $6 trillion of costs. And I think step one is, instead of doing like 20 different tax cuts for a 4-year basis, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on factories, no tax on auto loans, pick 4 of them. Pick your 4 favorite, prioritize, make those permanent, and then adjust the others so we can fit this thing into a reasonable budget.